There are thousands of great modern board games, which makes it impossible to know where to begin with building a collection. Well, I know, and I've got 10 games that will set you up with a varied and versatile selection for game night. And most importantly, we've got all the player counts covered, so whether you're playing on your own or with up to 7 friends, you'll have at least 3 games in your collection that you can bring out. Let's get into it. And thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video. Heat, Pedal to the Metal is a racing game that's all about pushing your car to its limits. It's set in the 1960s, back when cars were cars, men were men, and platitudes used to mean something. Each turn, you'll play some cards. That's how many spaces you'll move around the track. If you're in first gear, you can only play 1 card. So on a long straight, you'll want to be in 4th gear, playing 4 big cards to cruise ahead. But you have to slow down in time for corners. They have a speed limit, and if you go through too fast, you'll take heat as punishment. Heat is a blessing and a curse. It's your way of pushing your car to do things it shouldn't be capable of. If you want to shift up 2 gears at once, you can, but you'll add a heat card to your engine, and that will come back to haunt you later. Taking a heat is like drinking a Red Bull to stay awake. In the short term, you're pushing your body further, but you'll pay for it the next day. Those heat cards will turn up in your hand and they're useless, so you have less good cards to pick from. And you can't get rid of heat until you slow down. So you want to time it so you can ditch the heat on a slow corner. Unfortunately, you don't know when it's going to strike. It's like kissing someone with a cough on Saturday, being fine for days, and then suddenly on Tuesday you've got tuberculosis, which puts a real downer on taco night. You can keep pushing your engine as long as you cool it down, which makes you cocky. But if you take a corner too fast and you don't have heat to pay for it, your car will spin out, taking you back in the race. It's a fatal error. Your heart attack for drinking 1 too many Red Bulls. Worse still, your neighbor drank even more and is absolutely fine. Just like in Formula 1, it's all about finding those marginal gains. If you can keep with the pack, you can steal some extra meters by slipstreaming off your opponents, even get around a corner without taking heat for it. This is such a flexible game to have in your collection. You can play it from 1 to 6 players. With less than 4, I'd recommend using the Legends module, which automates other drivers to compete with, like playing Mario Kart against a computer. And for a collection starter, there's a ton of variety to keep you going. The box contains 3 extra modules with advanced gear cards, weather conditions, and even rules to get a championship going with your friends. It transcends racing games. It's just a brilliant board game that has loads of strategy and entertainment. It's a really solid foundation to start your board game collection. And if you want to try Heat, you can play it on Board Game Arena, as well as 4 other games in this video. And if you join my Patreon or YouTube membership, you can play against me right now. For a well-rounded collection, a hidden traitor game is a must-have, and for that, your best bet is Avalon. The idea is you're all part of King Arthur's Round Table, loyal servants to the crown, or at least that's what it appears. Some of you are evil minions of Mordred trying to sabotage from within, but without being found out. You're each given a secret role. If you're a loyal servant of Arthur, you're good. You're trying to weed out the traitors and learn who you can trust. If you're a minion of Mordred, you're bad, no matter what your mother says. And you know who is on your evil team because you get to open your eyes during the pre-game ritual. There are 5 quests to go on, and everyone is voting on who should go on each quest. You're trying to send your teammates so it goes your way. But remember, the good guys don't know who their teammates are, so you're trying to read people's behavior. Ben is talking a lot. Is he acting nervous, or is he just always annoying? When the quest happens, each member secretly picks a success or failure card, and they're revealed one at a time for full dramatic effect. If there's a single failure, the bad guys win. It's a loss for the good guys, but now they have some information. One of those players is evil, and so begin the accusations. Well, it's not me, so it must be him. And did you see how not upset he was when that failure card came out? That's the joy of these games. You will spend hours trying to get your friends to believe you. Like when you saw Robert Downey Jr. eating a kebab in Luton. The poor guy. I am not the best liar in the world. Or am I? But I love watching everyone trying to feel out their shifty vibes. And inevitably, every time you get to that final quest and there's one person who managed to fool you, this game loves a big finish. And it gets even more interesting when you add the special roles, like Merlin, who secretly knows who all the bad guys are, but can't risk blurting it out because they'll lose if Merlin is assassinated. They make it a perfect collection starter because the base game alone will entertain you for 100 games, and then you've still got something new to explore. Plus, it covers a larger player count than our other games, from 5 to 10 players. We're all playing a hidden traitor game online because cybercriminals are pretending to be us by stealing our personal data and using it to take out huge loans.
Hello, I am famous YouTuber John Perkis. I would like to buy a car, please.
Okay, and to verify your payment, what were your last 3 purchases?
Board games?
Yes.
White t-shirts.
Yes.
Grey hair dye.
To dye it grey?
Yes.
Payment approved.
I knew it was fake.
Our personal data is available online thanks to data brokers, and it can easily fall into the wrong hands. Trying to find and delete that data yourself is an impossible task, but it's made possible by today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni will contact data brokers on your behalf to remove your data, and continue working behind the scenes to keep it off the market. There are people search sites where anyone can find out your home address, financial information, even your family members. It's scarily easy to access, and it's not just useful for scams, it could be used for stalking or online harassment.
Hello, is that the mother of John Perkis?
Jonathan Perkis?
Yes, your son has bad taste in board games. He has rated Agricola by Uwe Rosenberg 6 out of 10. This is unacceptable.
Oh, leave us alone, you scoundrel.
Then I watch his videos. I don't laugh out loud, actually.
Sign up to Incogni using the code Actualol and you'll get 60% off an annual subscription. There's a link below. Iberia is my pick for a cooperative game to start your collection. Set in the 1800s, you play as scientists sent to Spain and Portugal to try and cure deadly diseases like cholera and typhus. Sadly, 200 years on, they're trying to find the cure for a new infection: British tourists. The diseases are shown on the map by these cubes, and it's your job to try and get to these places and treat them, because every turn, the game system will infect new cities. And you're really up against it. There is wave after wave of illness to deal with, like your kids just started nursery. Getting to these places is half the battle, because this is the 1800s. There are no planes or cars to get you around. But there are railroads, or at least there will be once you've built them. You can spend your time you could be treating patients, to build a transport infrastructure, so that the next time you want to get from Salamanca to Valencia, you can do it in a third of the time. But how can you think about that when people are dying? If you don't keep the diseases at bay, the cities will outbreak too many times and you'll lose the game. But that's like treating the patient who's screaming the loudest first. You need to be clever and research the diseases. And that involves collecting the right cards, meeting in cities to share knowledge with each other, and building hospitals. And you have to do that because that's how you win the game. Somehow you have to strike the right balance between saving lives and letting a few people die so you can reorganize your email folders so you'll be more efficient at saving lives in the future. If you don't build any railroads, you'll get halfway through the game and be completely overrun because you've spent more time hiking than helping. It's these decisions that you'll discuss with your teammates, and there's so many ways to approach it that everyone will have a different idea. Plus, you each have your own role, playing as the nurse or the sailor or the politician, giving you a special advantage at tackling the problem. You can play Iberia from 1 to 5 players. It's based on the board game Pandemic, but it has some significant changes that make it a very different experience. I love both games, but I think that Iberia is great for starting a collection because it's a deeper challenge to try and overcome. And if you do think you've cracked it, there are 2 extra ways to play the game in the box. Plus, it's not so bad letting people die in the 1800s because they'll be dead by now either way. When you're starting a collection, you need crowd pleasers. And the game that is fun for 99% of the population of this planet, and some other ones, is just one. One player, just one, has to guess a word, and the others will each write a clue for them on their whiteboards. Something related to that word. Whatever they want, but one word, just one. If the word is hammer, I could write tool. The guesser will look at everyone's clues and try to guess the secret word. They only have one guess to get it right. Just one. So they need a selection of different clues to help them triangulate the right answer. If you just had tool, you might say screwdriver. But if you combine Thor and tool, you're more likely to say hammer. But wait a second, let's go back a bit, because before you show your clues to the guesser, you show them to each other first. And if anyone has written the same word, they get wiped out. The guesser is only shown what's left. So if a few players write the same thing, there'll be hardly any clues left to work with, making it so much harder. You're all trying to win as a team, so you want your clue to get through, which forces you to get creative. Only a tool would write tool. You should go implement or utensil, plumbing the depths of your internal thesaurus, like an Inuit writing a poem about snow. What's hilarious is when 2 players think outside of the same box and end up clashing with the word cudgel instead. But what happens more often is that the guesser is left with a wardrobe of words that are so distantly related to the original one that they could legally have children together. And the guesser is completely lost. Utensil is making them think of kitchens, war is sending them towards weapons, and time is a cute clue for hammer, but only if you know the word. So what you've got is the absolute simplest game in the world that is also really tough. Being the guesser is like being on a game show, blinded by the studio light, incapable of thinking of a single word. You've got one guess, just one, to win this round. You blurt it out and the room erupts because everyone contributed to that victory. Well, except those idiots who wrote the same clue. This is the kind of game you can play and play. You can bring it out in any situation with any group. The box can play up to 8 players, but if you need to add more, you can just use bits of paper. The more people, the more fun you'll have crashing into each other's clues. Of all the games in this video, just one is an absolute must-have for a collection. If you pointed a gun to my head and asked me for a fun game, I'd say just one. Or, don't shoot me, I'm too young to die. If you're trying to persuade someone to try a modern board game, you'll want something that catches the eye, with a theme that isn't going to turn anyone off. And for that, I'd recommend Parks. It's about hiking through the American national parks. You have 2 hikers on this walking trail, stopping off at forests and waterfalls to collect tokens. But these hikers are an introverted bunch. When they visit a mountain, they want to be there alone. You can't share a space with another hiker. That means if Anna is already at the forest, you're going to have to walk past her onto something else. And if you really want something, you should race ahead at 6 AM before anyone has a chance to get there first and block you. The threat of everyone else marching behind you makes you do silly things, like running to the top of the mountain because you can't bear the thought of anyone else getting there first. They say hiking is good for anxiety, and they're right, you'll have absolutely loads of it. You're collecting tokens to buy park cards to get points. But you can't buy one until you finish the trail, so someone else could take the one you're eyeing up first. Again, you're being rushed. It's like going for a morning stroll with a friend who's got brunch plans. But that's not the only way. If you can cope with missing out on stuff, you will get more tokens if you take your time. Be the chilled out stoner who doesn't care if they see the mountain peak, because there's just as much beauty in this tiny blade of grass, man. Another way to get ahead of your rivals is to upgrade your gear. These will give you discounts on park cards. So now you don't have to worry about getting to the mountain first because you don't need it anymore. Just like in a national park, there are lots of different paths you can take, which makes for a really interesting game. What do you want? How can you get it? And how are those interminable other humans going to get in your way? Parks plays from 1 to 5 players, and it's a really nice way to start a collection because it's a beautiful game in a beautiful package. Actually, maybe it's a terrible way to start because you'll never find another game that looks this nice. Cascadia is a strategic puzzle game that has you creating a North American wilderness and populating it with wild animals like bears and foxes. Each player is building their own lands, trying to make theirs more harmonious and better than their rivals. It means you are in charge of your own destiny. No one can ruin your plans, but also that you've got no one to blame but yourself when you lose. Every turn, you add a new habitat tile to your map, expanding your forests and rivers and prairies, which we don't have in the UK because we're not as religious. You're trying to connect them up because you score for your largest habitat, and you're trying to make them bigger than everyone else's because then you get bonus points. You also add an animal onto your map, and they score for being in certain arrangements. For example, the salmon want to be in a long run, and the bears in a family of 3. Each tile allows certain animals to go there, so really it's a double layer puzzle. When you're expanding your habitat, you're also planning out which animals you want and where, building a fox-shaped house in the hope he'll move to the area. It's a great game for looking ahead, and it's so easy to follow. What was I planning again? Oh yeah, I need another bear. Be ready to be disappointed. Sometimes the bears don't come out of the bag, or they do and your rivals take them. But it's easy to pivot. Sack off your bear hopes for a new elk plan. Like a goth realizing they can switch to being a mime by just buying a stripy t-shirt. And every turn is still a tough choice because you have to take a pair of habitat and animal. You might want the bear, but not the annoying river that comes with it. You're always having to compromise on something. And the winner is the player who can best adapt. It's a fascinating puzzle to get stuck into, and one that changes every time you play it, with each animal scoring in different ways. Cascadia is great at 2, 3, or 4 players, and it's also the best option for solo gaming on this list. If you want to buy it, or any of the games in this video, there are links below. Every collection needs a filler card game, something to throw in your bag and play anywhere. And the one that I get the most use out of is Llama. Llama is like Uno for grown-ups, except kids can play it too, so Llama is like Uno if it had paid attention at school. Just like in Uno, cards are bad and you're trying to get rid of them. When it's your turn, you can play one card onto the stack. For example, to play on a 2, you need a 2 or a 3. If you can't play, you have to draw a card, which you don't want to do, because at the end of the round, you score penalty points for the cards left in your hand, and the player with the least penalty points at the end of the game wins. Where the game gets clever is that instead of playing or drawing a card, you can pass, bow out of the round. You'll still take penalty points for the cards you have left, but it could get worse if you take another card, especially if you draw a last-minute llama worth 10 points. It's the sensible, mature decision for people who use letter openers and shoehorns. Better to leave the casino down 100 quid than stay longer and lose even more. And by dropping out early, you're putting the squeeze on whoever's left. If the last player can't play their cards, they have to pass and take the penalty. That's when the llamas really spit in your face. So jumping out is as much about cutting your losses as amplifying everyone else's. But if you've had some bad rounds and you're on the verge of defeat, then you're desperate to cling on and get rid of your hand, because that wins you the round and means you can give back 10 penalty points. So like Charlie Bucket, you keep buying chocolate bars, waiting for the golden ticket to transform your fortune. Llama is my go-to card game because it's great for 3 to 6 players. You can play it with anyone, plus it's quick to set up, to teach, and to play. Our collection needs a bit of spice. And that's where Libertalia Winds of Galecrest comes in, a game of being selfish pirates trying to run away with the most gold. You're fighting it out to get the best loot. You can see what's up for grabs each round, and you send one of your characters to stake your claim. The highest ranked will get first dibs on the loot. The lowest rank will get the dregs that no one else wanted. which is often a cursed relic that sucks gold from you, and once you have it, you can't get rid of it, like a gym membership. So why not play a better card? Well, because everyone starts with the exact same hand of characters. If we all play the highest card, the governor, it will be a tie and come down to where you are on the reputation track. You don't want to waste your best card for it to get beaten. Plus, it's not just about the loot. Each character has an action that activates in ascending order, so the lowest rank goes first. If your cabin boy is the leftmost character, you gain 3 gold. But again, if someone else copies you, one of you is getting nothing. It's like trying to repeat a joke that someone else has just made. You've been dealt the same hand as everyone else. So like a heterosexual 6-foot brown-haired man called John, you have to find an original way to use it. Becoming a board game YouTuber wasn't unique enough. Except there is a best way to play these cards. If you play the Wind Nymph early, you'll get 2 gold every turn. But that only works in a vacuum, not surrounded by greedy pirates. So you're having to fight the urge to do what you want, not wear your Rolex because you might get mugged. And then you've got the Vizzini mind games. If everyone else thinks you can't play the governor in case someone else plays the governor, then no one's playing the governor and you can play the governor. I love trying to predict what the other players will do and counteract it. Every time the cards are revealed, it's an exciting moment to see if your plan has worked, and see who's getting killed by the brute or robbed by the beggar. And through all of that, you've got the saber of Damocles hanging over you. When someone takes this loot tile, they can kill another character. You'd rather take the chest worth 5 gold, but if you don't take the saber off the table, someone else might kill you with it. You're a band of pirates, so death is expected, and it's really fun trying to cheat it every round. And if someone does get you, well, now you've got a reason to take a saber. Every time you play, there will be a different mix of character cards that bounce off each other to create a fresh experience. It can play from 1 to 6 players, but I think it's more fun when you've got more pirates to fight it out with. I normally recommend a dedicated 2-player only game, but today we want games that can do it all. And Carcassonne is a brilliant 2-player game that is also fun at 3, 4, and 5 players. You're building a medieval French landscape together, adding tiles to the map to build cities and roads. But you're not friends. You're trying to profit from the land the most. It's about spotting opportunities and trying to capitalize on them. When you add a tile extending a city, you can add one of your people to control it. And the bigger you make that city, the better, so you'll keep adding tiles to it. But you only get those points if you can complete it. And the bigger it gets, the more unwieldy it becomes. And you're at the mercy of the draw pile. To finish that city, you need certain shapes. And you know they're in there, but if the other players get them, they're not going to help you. So you wait and wait, desperate to finish your dream city before the game ends. And as you wait, your person is trapped there. You only have 7 people to place on the map, and you only get them back to put them somewhere else when you finish your cities and roads. But if you never finish it, they're stuck there. So every time a new opportunity comes up, you've got to decide, is it worth sending them? It's like being a hedge fund manager, but if an investment goes wrong, you lose a family member. Not that that would affect a hedge fund manager. The roads and cities are short-term wins, but it's the farmers that are your legacy. They occupy the fields in between it all, and score 3 points for every completed city that their land is touching, which if you're clever about it, could be every city in the entire game. But when you place a farmer down, it's for life. They won't come back into your hand. And the farmland becomes a battle. Other players will add their farmers to the same field, trying to steal your points. So then you need to put another one down to beat them. The thought of losing points to your neighbor is unthinkable. It doesn't matter how many good family members you waste. In your first few games, you'll be focused on your own thing, but as you get into it, you can use the tiles to try and sabotage your opponent's plans, make their city impossible to finish so they never get those points. Carcassonne is not as flashy or glamorous as the other games on this list, but if you want a collection of rock-solid games that are fun for endless amounts of plays, you can't overlook this classic. It's rare to find a game that is still fun at all player counts, but Sushi Go Party manages it from 3 to 8 players, and it does it by having everyone play at the same time. Everyone has a hand of sushi, and you pick one card to eat. Then everyone reveals what they've picked, and just like in a real restaurant, that's when you get food envy. Then you pass your hand to the left like it's on a conveyor belt and pick a card from your new hand. You're trying to create sets of sushi, and each type scores in its own way. To score 10 points for sashimi, you need 3 of them, and they're hard to come by. So when you see someone else reveal one, you're gutted because that's one less on the conveyor belt to make its way round to you. Whereas the simple salmon nigiri is worth 2 points, straight off, no risk. But that's not exciting, you want to dream bigger, so you go for the uramaki. Whoever can collect 10 of those tiny rolls first will get 8 points. This restaurant is running out of food, fast, and you're placing a bet on what you think you can get. So it pays to be different. If no one else is ordering dumplings, then you can clean up. I love the risky cards. Tofu is worth 6 points if you get 2 of them, but if you eat 3 or more, you'll get 0 points. So you're terrified at the end of the round of getting handed a final tofu that you have to eat. There's this mixture of fear and excitement every time you get a new hand, like a kid opening their birthday presents. Either you get exactly what you want and are delighted, or everything is ruined until the end of time. And the game keeps things fresh by giving you 22 types of sushi to mix and match. Every game, you pick a set of 7 dishes to play with, and each combination will give you a different dynamic. Those are my 10 recommendations to start a board game collection. If you want to buy any of them, there are links below. And to see exclusive Actualol content, support the channel on Patreon or YouTube. Last month's exclusive video was 10 games that are too useful to get rid of. And this month is all about the few expansions that I actually like. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching. And don't forget, sign up to Incogni using the code Actualol and you'll get 60% off your subscription.